face.
Hello and welcome back to Circuit Demon Headquarters. Today we're going to be working on some X Halos in the 2015 and up Subaru WRX Base and Premium. So our new X Halos are pretty sweet. It's definitely a more aggressive and unique look than like a typical Halo. And a lot of people with the Hex Halos wish that they were like a full kind of closed in shape. So these kind of fit that bill. These look really cool. They're like almost like a cyberpunky kind of look. So especially when they're on the car, they look pretty futuristic and pretty wild. So we're going to be putting these on a set of 2015 lights this morning. So let's go over what we're going to need this morning to complete this install. So we've already opened up our 2015 headlights. These are not painted yet. If you guys didn't see our video on how to open these up, make sure you check that out. We're going to need a pair of these X Halos. As you'll see on here, they also have a waterproof grommet, so we could route the wiring through without having any sort of stuff get in the headlight. And then we're also going to need two different tools. One is just a small drill. It doesn't need to be a Dremel like this, just anything with a small bit on it. If you only have 1/16, that's fine, it'll do the trick, but anything smaller than that's going to be preferred. And then I also recommend using a Dremel. You can use a drill with a smaller bit, but this is really going to do the trick better off. So this just has a small like sanding acorn attachment at the top there with a bunch of plastic on it already. So that's it. So now that we have our parts, we have the tools that we're going to use, we're going to go ahead and mock these up and just see how they're going to fit. So we're just going to take the power wires and just guide them through the projector hole. And this is going to fit pretty much flush this outer diameter of the ring with the diameter where the projector usually sits. So just like that. We actually had these specifically made for this year and model. The extensions went a little bit further out before, but we kind of took them back just so it'd fit perfect. So it's going to fit pretty much just like that. What we want to figure out now is where to drill the holes for the fishing wire that's going to actually mount these to it, as well as the power wire, because it's just not a good fit and finish product. We want to make sure that that wire tucks up a little bit more. The reason that we chose to do the 12 o'clock at the top position for these power wires is it's the best way to hide those wires once they're installed. So you really can't see them from the top, especially when the sea light's in here and the light's sealed up. If we had them on the bottom, even if we were to drill a hole down there, there still is going to be a little bit of this wire and that glue showing, and same with if they were on the sides. So we usually just like to go for that very top position, usually going to be standing over the car just like the camera is right now, and there's really no way you're going to see that wire. So now that we know how the halo is going to fit, we're just going to go ahead and mask off the areas that we know that we're going to have to remove some material. So I'm going to do the very top where those power wires are going to go through, and then I'm also going to do the fishing line right about the 3 and 9 o'clock positions. And the whole reason for that is just to get a nice distribution of how we're going to anchor the halo down. So having both sides there on that top is going to make sure that it sits nice and flat. There's not going to be any points that are sticking up. The first holes we're going to drill are going to be the fishing line ones, which are on either side of the halo. Just like we saw before, the outer diameter is going to sit right on here. So I don't want to drill any holes outside of this peak right here. I don't want to do anything on this side of the tape. I want both of them to be on the inside. That way they'll both be hidden when the halo's mounted. We're going to drill 2 holes on either side, and we're going to put them as close to this top ridge as possible. It's fine if they line up, but we don't want to do too far back, because that way I'll be able to see it when the halo's mounted. So the power wires, we're just going to draw a little notch here of where we want those to be. So the reason we have a pretty wide oval there is if you look on the back of the halo, that glue that holds the wires to the contact points, it's just going to be a little extra space there. So we just want to accommodate for that. The next thing we're going to drill out are going to be the power wires up top. So we want to go ahead and just get the orientation right. So if you want it a little bit more tilted or a little the other way, I'm just going to have it kind of right in the middle center there. So once I flip this over, I should see exactly where I'm going to need to make some space. So I do want to drill a little bit of this out for that glue, just so the halo sits a little bit higher. As you can see right now, it sits just a little bit under that lip. So I'm just going to drill some of this space out, and then I'm going to make some room for the power wires themselves. Pull the halo away. And I know that right here, I'm I'm gonna need the hole, and then I'm gonna need a little room for that glue right there. We're gonna start with just taking some material off the very edge of this ring. So we'll start here. So now that we have that material taken out of the top, I'm just gonna test fit this to make sure the halo is sitting nice and flush. So it looks good to me. And then we can go ahead and take the additional material off for the actual hole for the wires. Alright, so we have all of our holes drilled, both for the fishing lines on either side. Up top we have that little bit trimmed away for the glue as well as the wires to go through. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and put these headlights into paint. We wanna make sure that we paint them and get a good finish after we do all this drilling, and then we're gonna go ahead and put them in. Luckily for you, we already have a set that's painted. So let's head back to our wiring desk and we'll show you guys how to install these. So now that we have these headlights painted, we are ready to go ahead and install our X-Halos. So for this, what we're gonna need is a pair of scissors, a small pick or a small flathead screwdriver, or even a toothpick. We have our X-Halo, then we also have some small gauge fishing line. The last thing that I do recommend is just some of this extra wire coating. So if you have like some extra wire laying around, just pop some of the coating off. You'll see that's gonna be for a little trick we have in just a moment. Alright, so the first thing we're gonna do is take off this white plug as well as the wire grommet, just so that we're not passing all of this through that wire hole we drilled. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna de-pin this white connector. If you see, there's gonna be one side that has a locking tab and the other with 4 little windows and those metal pins in there. We're gonna take our pick or a small flathead or even a toothpick and just gently push down towards the wire these 4 little metal pins. What that's going to do is release the locking tabs, so it should just wiggle free. From there, we're just going to slide this right back up. Boop. Whoop, there it goes. And now we're ready to install these. I also recommend, before you put these on the headlight, just quickly cleaning them, just with a little bit of glass cleaner. Just make sure there's no like dust or anything from drilling. Now that we have the plug off the end of the wires, we're just going to go ahead and feed these through. It might get a little tight with this heat shrink there, but if we just give it a little push, through it goes. And we're just going to feed this all the way, all the way, all the way up to the top. So it fits nice and flush just like we tested it before. That looks good to me. The next thing we're going to do is take our fishing line and feed it through these holes. So what we're going to do with this is we're pretty much going to loop it around the halo through those 2 holes and then tie a knot on the back. The reason we like to do this over glue is that over time a 2-set epoxy could get brittle with heat, and just having a nice mechanical bond, something that actually physically holds around it, is just a more secure way to do it. So we're going to feed that through. We're going to go on this side of the halo now, feed this end through, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. So now we have those fed through, we're just going to go on the, I'm going to hold the top with my thumb right where the wire is. That's almost like a pivot point because the wires are through there. That's the point that's kind of anchoring it down right now. So with my finger right there, it should help hold it where we want it to. And as we pull them tight, we're just going to make sure that we help them kind of center themselves. So at this point, we're going to flip it over. What I recommend using is just a nice clean microfiber cloth. And this is where we're going to have our little wire coating trick. So if you cut off just a little section of that wire coating, we're just going to thread the fishing line through. What this does is just helps add a little space to that knot. Because that knot is kind of recessed in this channel, it is very hard to get a lot of tension on it. So using that little extra piece of wire is going to help us get extra tension on there. And because it's rubber or plastic, it kind of adds a little spring to it as well. So what we're going to do is just double knot that for now, and just loosely double knot it, and then just check and see how our alignment is. So right now it's not bad, but it is a little bit to the side. So we're just gonna push that knot up a little bit. We want it to sit pretty close to that. So I'm gonna adjust this one again, just get that centered where the holes are, pull this tight, a little finesse to it, and then do the same thing over here, a little wire trick. So this one we're going to do a little bit loose as well. The reason we want to do it loose is just to double check and make sure it looks good. So right now you can see there's a little gap at the top. So I just want to make sure I can push this up there So that looks good to me. You can see that ridge is lined up right with the outer diameter of the halo on both sides. And you can see it's very, very flush. There's no halo poking out or anything like that. So this looks good to me. The alignment looks right as far as the clocking goes, and everything looks great. So we're gonna go ahead and just cinch this down now. Actually, I'm just gonna twist it a little more. So we can go back here. We're just gonna tighten these knots down. And then I always just go for the triple. Hit it with the triple real quick. So now we have the knots on, we're just going to go ahead and trim the excess fishing line from these knots. Don't trim too close, just enough where you're not going to see it from the front. And you can adjust these afterwards, so if you want to like adjust the rotation or kind of push it up or down, there should be enough tension on there where it's still going to sit flush, and that's that. What we also recommend is you can add a little bit of JB Weld on these knots as well as where this wire is. That just makes sure that over time or anything, these don't come loose. And with the wires, if you go to pull this when you're putting the headlights together, it could shift the halo a little bit. So just a little JB Weld on the inside, not the outside where you could see it. The inside is going to make sure that holds nice and tight. Cool. So last part before we put these together is we do want to put the wire grommet back on. So we're just going to sneak that through. And then we do need to pull the retaining tabs back up. We did depress them earlier with that pick. So all we're going to do is take like a flat blade, like a razor, something like that, and just very, very gently kind of work in under. You can see those 4 little pins between the razor and the rest of those plugs. So we're just going to kind of work those up a little bit. They don't need to be very high, just a very slight angle, and those are going to help retain these pins back in this white connector. So once again, we're going to make sure that the pins go through those little windows. Just going to jiggle it back on. You should hear a little click, and they're all good. Give it a nice tug just to make sure that none of them are disengaged. But that looks good to me. Now that we have our connector repinned and our rubber wire grommet on there, we're gonna show you guys how to route this out of the headlight in a waterproof fashion. So the first thing we're gonna do is go to the backing of the headlight. We did take the chrome reflector piece out. You don't need to do that. But what we're gonna do is try to find a spot on the bottom of the light where we can drill a hole to route that wire out. Now where we're typically gonna aim is gonna be just below the projector because the halo sits there. And we're gonna keep away from this mounting point right here, the threaded area. So if we just go to the outside of that, right around here, we're gonna wanna drill that hole. So for the grommet, this is gonna be a 3/4 inch hole that we need to drill. So you can either do like a hole saw style like this. I know that they have this style as well, but all we're gonna wanna do is just aim for that area and fire away. So that's gonna give us the spot we need to route that wire out. All right, so I just used a razor blade to kind of cut the little burr of plastic from that area. So how this is gonna route out is, imagine this is on the front of the headlight, the housing. All you're gonna do is route the white plug through. And then as far as sealing up, what I would normally recommend is when the glue is hot and you're putting this back together, just put the whole thing through like that. So that way you can make sure that you're focused on getting the lens sealed up, as opposed to trying to finagle with this thing. So once the headlight's all sealed up, we wanna just run this wire grommet up there. And then usually what I'll do is I'll just pinch it and get that larger size side in first. Bottom piece, and then just kind of work your way around until the whole thing's in there, and then just kind of give it a little bit of a pull and a wiggle. So that way it's all sealed up, and you can see from the top here as well, it's got a nice tight hold. We don't have to worry about any water going in. And the other thing is, the reason we chose to drill it in the bottom and not the back of the headlight is because gravity is gonna help us keep that water out. If we have it on the bottom, we know that the water is not gonna go straight up. If it's on the back, it could trickle down the headlight and somehow get in there. All right, so once the headlight is all together and you're ready to wire these bad boys up, I do just want to go over how to plug this LED driver into the halo and the controller. So this LED driver, the main function it has is to take power from the Bluetooth remote, the 12 volts, dull it down to the correct voltage and amperage for the halo, and make sure it doesn't send too much or too little. So we're gonna go ahead and make sure that this black plug goes to the Bluetooth remote. The white plug is gonna go to the halo. Now what you'll notice is it's not gonna turn on. see on one line. So these two wires are pretty important. One of them is mandatory and one of them is totally up to you if you want to use it. So the black wire is a mandatory ground. It has this additional ground besides this plug just for stability. If you have a mounting point on the car, the engine bay, where you can ground this, go for it. If you'd rather do it to the battery, cool. What we usually do here is actually just run this wire up where we grounded our remote and just tie it in right there. Cool. So that's our halo doing what it should. And now this orange wire over here, this is the optional turn signal input. So if you want to use your X halo or a hex halo or any other profile prism product, you can go ahead and wire this into the positive input of the turn signal. And when we hit that, it's going to go ahead and turn this that amber orange color and then go back to whatever color you set it to. So thank you guys so much for watching the video on how to install your Circuit Demon X halos into your 15 and up WRX. If you guys have any questions, comments, throw them below. Also, this same process that you saw could be used for any vehicle. We use the 2015 WRX because we have a lot of customers who ask how to install that for that car. But once again, the same process you would use for any vehicle. We'll see you guys next time. If you guys want to see us do any other videos in particular, comment those below as well, and we will make those for you. Bow.